As of today, October 19th, we're at 130 homicides. Now, these may be numbers to you, but a lot of these police officers that go out into these communities know these numbers personally. They know their families. They've had to go out and tell the mothers, hey, your son's not coming home tonight. He got killed in a drive-by. They've had to go out and tell the fathers, hey, your son got stabbed at the club last night. You're never gonna see him again. They've had to bring loved ones in. Hey, can you identify this body? We think that you might be the next of kin. This is what we need to be focusing on. Because while we're sitting here and we're arguing these things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, what we need to be arguing about right now is, why are these numbers so high? Why are these families losing loved ones? That's what we need to be focusing on. Stop letting these people in power pull the shade over your eyes.
Hey, what's going on, guys? As we get ready to get into this podcast, I didn't want to do it without giving a shout out to our sponsor, Thin Line Anthem. Thin Line Anthem is an organization that promotes positive and healthy style living. They produce supplements as well as pre-workouts and a whole bunch of other things that are going to get you to accomplish your fitness goals. And not only do they do that, they also support local law enforcement agencies as well as federal law enforcement agencies. This is big news because we definitely need the support nowadays. And so if you guys want, please go on to thinlineanthem.com, use promo code It's Needed, all caps, no spaces, so that way you guys can get 25% off your next checkout. Thanks again and enjoy this podcast episode. Take care and God bless. Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Is Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the light-skinned wonder. Oh my goodness, golly, he can't even let me get it finished. Shoot.
I'm hyper today. Y'all gotta deal with me.
It must be that pre-workout he's taking by Thin Line Anthem.
Yes, sir.
Thin Line Anthem, no subs. I mean, golly.
Hey, actually, listen, this ain't even a plug. It truly is, because for those of you who know Ryan, y'all already know he is late to everything. So he hit us up this morning. He's like, hey, we got to push it back an hour. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get a workout in. So I made the mistake, took that pre-workout. It's still in me. So I might just start doing push-ups mid-podcast.
Hey, you know why I was late? Because I'm the only one that's working out around here. So, you know, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to stay in shape. I mean, y'all see it.
What? Stop.
Hey,
for everybody who's seen that video had the same face.
I'm just going to say this Raglan's been fitting a little tight, bro. I put on my Raglan this morning. I was like, you know, it was fitting a little tight.
Put on your what?
My Raglan. You don't know what a Raglan is? That's what
That's
what this shirt is called, bro.
I wasn't going to ask because I thought maybe I was the only one that didn't know what that was.
Ryan got money.
Fair or foul.
When you start calling stuff like a t-shirt, a different name.
Is a Raglan like the man pouch?
Hey. Nah, fair or foul. Oh, okay. Man, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hey, fair or foul though. So my wife. So we had Miles on the podcast. So you guys know who Miles is. Well, first of all, I'll go back. Squirrel. I didn't introduce the man, the myth, the legend himself. The Savage is with us also today. Real quick, don't remind me to go back to my other thought again. But you know me, I'll be getting sidetracked. I had to bring something up. I saw Billy walk in the studio this morning. I was like, Billy, you look fancy. You going somewhere today? Like, why you looking so nice? My man got on.
He got Crocs on?
No. He got khakis on. He got like a nice little polo with a nice watch. Okay. Watch looking kind of big. I'm just saying, bro. Like the face is about this big, and then got some nice shoes. I was like, what's going on? I was like, you going somewhere? He was like, nah. I think I just changed up the look a little bit. I was like, okay.
I was getting called out for the Crocs a lot, so I thought, you know what? I need to. I think it's time to present myself a little better than I have been.
I was like, okay. Billy's a real director now. Billy decided to show up like a director today.
But you know the saying: if you look good, you feel good. So
you feel good, you play good.
Great.
Hey. So anyway, let me get back to my story. So along those lines of me being a squirrel. So last week, my boy Miles is training my wife at home. So he's because Miles is, I don't know if you guys ever seen Miles, but Miles is like ridiculously insane and fit, man. Like his veins just be talking to him on a daily, on a reg. Like, hey, what you feel like today? We drinking protein? What we doing today? They just be having conversations with one another. How many reps? I was thinking we should do 10. Miles like, I was thinking about we should do 12. So I just see him talk to each other. Anyways, so he comes over the house. He's training my wife, and so I'm talking. I'm like, hey, what up, dog? Like, how you doing, bro? Like, what's going on? And then my phone started ringing, and I didn't even realize it, bro. So I was like, hello. hello. So like Miles was getting ready to tell me something.
So
I was like,
that's Ryan.
So then Miles tells my wife, I didn't know this, but Miles tells my wife, like, man, what's up with your husband? Because the night before we were at work, and some girl, one of my partners, walked into the kitchen when me and Miles was just eating lunch together. And so she was talking to me, and we were talking back and forth. So she told me a story, and I thought like the story was over. I honestly thought. And so my boss walked by. So like he had called me for something. So I think he was calling me on my phone. So I'm like, hello. What's up, Sarge? And then I walk out I walk out the kitchen or whatever. And so I guess she looked at Miles like, dang, like I didn't even get a chance to finish my story. I was like, I honestly didn't even realize it. So I got to be better about that. So my bad, y'all. I do be having squirrel moments. Forgive me for that.
That's the empty apology. Don't fall for it, y'all.
No, that is a very sincere apology. But moving on in latest news, the Dodgers are going back to the World Series. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. So hopefully we'll win it this time.
Okay.
The Lakers are national champions again.
California, man. To talk about our sports, AJ.
Yeah, sports.
But this don't
great.
count.
Man.
Like this year does not count.
No, it does count.
I mean, there's a trophy. That sounds like it counts to me. I don't know.
No, it's an asterisk at the bottom of that trophy. It's an asterisk. Like this season was kind of.
We definitely know how to play sports in California. Social issues,
but the state budgets, but basketball, homelessness,
Y'all got mountains though. Y'all got mountains.
But baseball,
y'all got mountains.
We talking about
practice?
Stop
and look at them. Billy, did you stop and look at the mountains today?
I did. Well, today there's like. I like to call it fog, but it's probably smog covering up all the mountains.
Oh, man.
AJ's the internet.
Yeah, there it goes again, messing up.
It's probably smog.
That was late. That was a late response, but we good. So anyways, so back to the show, since we had to take a quick pause because AJ's bootleg internet went out for a second.
Here we go.
I want to bring something up. So I saw an interesting post. I don't know if you've been. I'm sure you have, AJ. I know Billy hasn't seen how he just saw Friday last week.
Oh, Debo.
So, have you been following Ice Cube at all?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Surprisingly, Billy has seen it.
Billy's lying.
Well, I saw the interview with him and Chris Cuomo.
He's like, you talking about Ice Cubes? Yeah.
Ice Cube, yeah. I put him in my tea in the morning.
So I want to bring you that up, though, just because, man, it's kind of interesting to see how Ice Cube is, starting to come out. Basically, essentially, if you guys aren't familiar with Ice Cube, famous actor, famous rapper, done a lot of different things. And so, one of the things he recently said was, I essentially am not messing with anybody in politics right now. He said, I'm not really messing with anybody from the Democratic side. I'm not messing with anybody from the Republican side. All I do know is that I requested to have some type of conversation or meeting involving, the black community. And one side, i.e. the blue side, said, hey, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's wait till after the election to talk about it. Whereas the red side was like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. Let's have a meeting ASAP and let's talk about getting this thing going and figure out how much money we got to put towards the cause. Yeah. So that caused Ice Cube to come out and say, look, I ain't really messing with no political parties right now, but what I do know is that when I asked to get something done, I know who actually gave me the time of day and I know who basically put me off. And so unfortunately, Ice Cube has been facing a lot of heat for what he's been coming out and saying about how he's feeling. And a lot of that heat's been coming from the minority community. So, i.e. the black community specifically has been roasting my man. So he had a tweet that he made that I took a screenshot of, and I thought it was actually pretty cool. He said, when I got bused to school, homies called me a sellout. When I started rapping in 1983, bangers called me a sellout. When I left NWA, they called me a sellout. When I started doing movies, rappers called me a sellout. When I started my own league, the arena said it was a sellout. I was like, dang, that's actually a pretty dope line. Like, I would love to hear that in a rap song. But I say that to say this is that, and this hopefully will motivate somebody today, is that when you're doing something right, when you're headed in the right direction, you're going to actually start getting a lot more pushback than you expected. A lot of times we think that we have these grandiose ideas. We're going to go out there and change the world. We're going to save the world. Everybody's going to love what I'm doing. And then the moment you start feeling heat from somebody else, it's like, wow, like all I'm trying to do is do things for the right reasons, but yet I feel like I'm taking more heat than anything. People call me a sellout. People call me this. That's a part of the process. But the sad thing is we have a lot of people that are coming out against him, trying to talk about how bad he is and this and that. And again, like he said, a sellout. And I was like, why is he a sellout? Just because he's starting to awaken to what's going on and the true supporters that he really has. And not only that, his voice and his opinions that he feels like, because he has that opinion, what he all of a sudden is wrong. So that, I guess, what makes me mad. And I'm trying to stay away from saying what makes me so frustrated, because my wife got on me today when I left the house. She was like, oh, this is going to be one of your frustrated episodes because you guys don't have a guest where all you do is just say, I'm frustrated about this, I'm frustrated about that. I'm like, dang, you're a hater.
Hey, our bad.
I was like, hater. She
what do you do with your friends all day? Come on.
And I love my wife. I'm just teasing her right now. But yeah, so what makes me mad is that you have an opinion about something and everybody calls you a sellout, or everybody starts to get on you and act like you can't have an opinion all of a sudden. And it just makes me upset, because I'm like, man, like, where's our voice gone? We can't have a voice anymore in society. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
It's even crazier to think that he's facing the backlash he is when he flat out said from the jump, like, look, I'm not supporting either one of these. I could see if I can't even see if he was like, yeah, I support Trump, right? I would expect people to be upset about that just because, people are people. But this dude came out and said, look, I'm not supporting anybody. The Trump administration reached back out to me when I reached out to them, and the Biden administration did not when I reached out to them. This is just the reality of what's going on in my world. And the people are calling him clowns, sellouts. But I'm glad you brought that post up, because as soon as you brought his name up, I don't know if you can see me, I grabbed my phone and I was looking for it too, because that resonated. And I know it resonated with you as a listener if you've ever stepped out of your comfort zone and did something and like went against the grain for something that you wanted. Like, people will talk about you. Like, Ryan, when you wanted to become a police officer, what did people tell you?
No, man, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You this
when
and
you
that.
became a cop and you wanted to go into the schools and make a difference, what did people tell you?
Sell out.
When you started BBU, what did people tell you?
Sell out.
Non-stop. Like, you're gonna face opposition. Like, I had it. I'm gonna be the police. Oh, you a sellout. I'm a community police. You're a sellout. Like, you're soft. You blah blah blah. Right? Like,
I'm dancing with kids. You're a sellout.
I'm gonna go dance with kids. You ain't got no rhythm, right? Like, all this stuff, right? But I say that jokingly, but I'm serious. Like, people are always going to project their fears on you. Right? Just because they can't do something, they're going to tell you that you can't do it. Just because they've never seen it done, they're going to tell you it can't be done. Just because it hasn't been done, they're going to tell you it's impossible. Stop letting people project their fears on you and control your life. And well, Ice-T is listen to me. Ice Cube is a prime example right now. Like, he's like, look, I've been called a sellout my whole life, but if I listened to that negativity, I wouldn't be in the shoes that I'm in today.
But it's kind of amazing to me when he said that. It's kind of encouraging to me, because Ice Cube is one of the most successful rappers. I mean, he's one of those guys that you will look at and say he was on the front end of when rap actually became rap.
Yeah, legendary.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so to think back, and when he talked about all those different things that he went through, it's kind of encouraging to me to say, because I'm 33 years old and I've had all these different things happen to me in such a short time, but I'm like, shoot, I must be on the right track. I must be on the right track, because if nobody's saying anything, that probably means I'm not doing anything that's going to make me different from everybody, to stand out. And so, but it's just sad. I mean, that's the time, that's the era that we live in right now, is that you can't be a proud Republican. You can't be a proud Democrat. You can't be a proud independent. And I guess proud is really not the right word. Yeah, you can't be a proud anything.
Really, I mean, it's kind of that world we live in. Like, if your views conflict with mine, and we got a problem. And I know I said we ain't gonna make this a political podcast, and I don't want to, but I gotta sprinkle this in there, because I got a good laugh about this the other day when Biden got on TV and said, hey, shoot him in the leg.
Oh, man.
So listen to me. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, and you got to connect with Biden, I need you to call him up and say, hey, listen to the It's Needed podcast, because we talked about that a while ago, like why we don't do that stuff. So if you could have him tune in and his party, we're gonna get him right, and we're gonna keep it moving in the right direction. So do me that favor.
Man, when I saw Biden said, and he was, the funny part about it, he was just so like casual with it, like, I mean, why can't we? I mean, just shoot him in the leg. And I'm like
it was matter of fact, yeah, like shoot him in the leg.
I'm like, bro, like, okay, that's definitely not gonna work. But all right,
and I've had the part that kind of caught me off guard with that statement was, we talk about all the time. Like, I have friends from every single walk of life, political support, you name it, right? Like super pro police, anti-police. So I've had that conversation a lot of times. Like, well, why don't you shoot the gun out their hand? Or, why don't you shoot them out, in the leg or in the foot or something like that, or in the butt cheek, right? And I'm never upset about that. But we're talking about a presidential candidate. Like, at this point in your life, you should know that's not really an option.
So let me do this. Let me explain why we don't shoot people in the leg. Let me just do that, because I think, I want to bring clarity, because you and I are, obviously we know like why we're not going to shoot anybody in the leg, but I want to let our audience know why we cannot shoot somebody in the leg, why that's not realistic. So anytime we utilize, an officer chooses or elects to use deadly force, i.e. shoot somebody with a gun, or, run somebody over with the car, whatever it may be, because essentially when you utilize deadly force as a police officer, you can use whatever means necessary to kill that person if you feel that a deadly force is necessary. And so when we're talking about specifically utilizing our firearms and why we don't shoot somebody in the leg, anytime an officer fires his gun, they are accountable for every round that comes out of the barrel of that gun. So anytime you shoot your gun, one of the first questions that they will ask you after that shooting is over is, how many rounds did you fire? One, they want to know, okay, are there the amount of rounds that you said were fired? Are those shells right here in this area? So that way we can make sure we know that this is pretty accurate. Two, they always ask, what direction did you fire? The reason they want to know is what direction you fired in is because, they want to know, was it target stop or whatever, but they also want to know bullets. But we all know that bullets travel, and because bullets travel, they don't just hit the person and stop. Sometimes it takes them hitting a hard object or whatever it may be in order for that bullet to stop traveling. And so literally, I kid you not, 2 weeks ago, I went on a call for service where we saw a bullet that was shot through, it was a duplex, and the bullet was shot through the wall, and it literally went over a bed in the next duplex over, and there was somebody that was laying in that bed. And so we went and actually saw the direction of travel, and it was low. So had a person been sitting up on that bed, wherever it was at, it would have struck that person. And mind you, it came from the other duplex. So they always ask, what directions did you shoot that round in? Because they want to know, are there people that we need to go look for to see if those bullets also hit somebody else that was an unintended target. And so when we talk about shooting a person in their leg, a leg is a very, very a leg is a very, very small part of a person's body. So I always ask people, what's the largest part of a person's body? And they'll always tell me, well, the chest area. Well, because the chest area is the largest part of a person's body, then that's where we're going to aim for, because you have to realize is anytime there's stress that's induced on a person's body, so a police officer, if we're talking about a police officer, anytime stress is induced to them, their vision gets a little bit more closed, their hearing actually goes down a little bit, and they call it tunnel vision. And what ends up happening is they just fixate on that target, but it also makes it a lot harder to shoot that target because of all the stress that's induced to the body. And so we want to aim for the highest or the biggest part of a person's body, because we know that's most likely where an officer is going to be able to shoot rounds on target effectively and more accurately. So that way it kind of basically reduces the chance of them shooting unintended targets, i.e. your son, your brother, your daughter, whoever it may be. And so it reduces that liability in a sense of, hey, we didn't shoot some innocent bystander. And so anytime a person says, hey, why don't you just shoot them in the leg? It's not realistic, because how many shots is it going to take for me to actually put rounds on target if I shoot a person in the leg? And then the other thing to realize is that we're not even considering shooting on the move or shooting moving targets. Yep. So you throw in shooting on the move or shooting a moving target, it now makes your ability to fire accurately that much more difficult, simply simply because you now have to shoot a target that's not standing still. So if you've ever fired a firearm before, you know how difficult it is to shoot static, meaning standing still. It's difficult to put rounds on target just shooting still, or shooting a still target. How much more difficult is it going to make it to shoot a target that's now moving? And so when the presidential candidate Biden said, why don't we just shoot them in the leg? That's not realistic. And if you wanted to make that a mandate, imagine how many more casualties you're going to have because officers were forced to shoot a target in the leg. So that's why it's not realistic. And I figured we should address that on this podcast.
And two things to think about since we're discussing it is, one, think about all of the vital organs in your center mass, right? So like your chest and your stomach, your heart, all of that, right? All your vital organs that really can't be damaged, or your life will eventually end, right? Think about the amount of videos we've seen where people have taken rounds to center mass and still continue to charge at officers, or they've got hit 3 or 4 times and just walked away like they were fine. Keep that in mind. Like, we're shooting to stop a threat, right? So if we're shooting at somebody and they got a rifle or they got a knife or, whatever, they're getting ready to go do something crazy. Maybe they just did something crazy. We want to stop that threat. There are a lot of vital organs in there that we're going to hit, and hopefully that's going to help us stop that threat. The second thing to remember is people always say, like, why don't you shoot them in the leg? Because it's less lethal. Let me tell you what a femoral artery is, right? There's an artery on the inner part of your thigh that if you nick that, you will bleed out in lightning speed. Lightning speed.
In seconds.
So that's an irrelevant thought within itself. Like, if you're saying that because you consider it less lethal, throw that out the window. Throw that out the window, because if a round hits that artery, it is a wrap for you. It is a wrap.
Yep.
So we have to keep those two things in mind.
And that's the funny thing is, like, we can't choose. We can choose what target we want to shoot and where we're trying to shoot, but we can't choose where that bullet is going to impact in a person's body.
Oh yeah, they bounce around, they hit bones, the bones shatter and start puncturing stuff. The rounds are normally hollow tips, so they mushroom,
and they're
some
designed
of them
that
mushroom
way.
and break out into little more pieces once they enter the flesh. So I mean, there's a lot to go into consideration with that.
Yep,
a lot.
So moving on, one of the things we haven't done in a while, we haven't done a topical podcast as it relates to some of the things or some of the ways we respond in our day-to-day work as police officers. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up today in our response to certain calls is I wanted to bring up mental health response. And the reason I wanted to bring up mental health response as it pertains to police officers and our response to them is because there's been a lot of talk saying, hey, look, we should actually start getting social workers to respond to these cases in order so that way we can reduce the amount of deadly force that's used on an individual that's going through a mental health crisis. So first, before we move forward, I want to start by saying this. I understand why a person would feel that they want a social worker to respond to a mental health crisis, because we ultimately want to save that person's life and get them the treatment that they need. On the surface level of that statement, I completely understand why you would feel that way. No doubt about it. I completely understand why you would want a social worker to go to a person that's going through mental health crisis. But before we move forward, before we dig deeper, before we go underneath that surface, we have to, I need you to have an open mind to what we're getting ready to say and describe to you, because these are going to be reasons of why that may not be the best idea. And so to start off this conversation, we have to realize what mental health is. And so mental health is a person that's going through, schizophrenia, bipolar, manic depressant, depression, whatever it may be. There are a lot of issues that people go through psychotically that causes them not to think right. And when a person's, and that's not including drug-induced, because you can also have drug-induced psychotic episodes, which makes a person do things that they wouldn't typically do if they weren't under the influence of drugs. So one of the things I want to do is first tell you guys some of the experiences that I've had when dealing with a person that's going through a mental health crisis, or they're going through a crisis caused by narcotics. It is one of the most craziest supernatural things that you will ever experience in your life. I mean, imagine a person that has unlimited strength. Imagine a person who can't comprehend what reality is, meaning we are talking, Billy, and you are talking in this present day age where we're doing a podcast and I can see a red wall in front of me. I'm sitting in a red chair. Well, imagine a person that would be sitting in this room and he's the color, that red color is making sounds to him. You know what I mean? And all these different, unnatural, supernatural, experiences are going on in a person's mind. Then you also have to take into account the person that's going through a spiritual, mental episode or psychotic episode where there's demons that are telling them, if I'm looking at Billy right now, I look at Billy and he looks like a demon to me, and that demon is telling me what to do. Yeah. And then I look at AJ, and AJ is now an angel, and this angel is like, no, you should do you should do what I'm telling you to do. And they're having this battle going back and forth. And then that demon tells you, hey, look, you see your mom over there? Go take her life. She needs to die right now. And this is what that demon is telling that person that's going through this mental episode, a psychotic episode. So these are things, these examples that I'm giving you, I'm not just making this up. This is stuff that I've personally experienced with people that are going through a mental health crisis. And so you take an officer, put him in that situation, and now they have to go respond to it. Is this person going to be able to be reasoned with and be able to have a conversation with and talk them into a place to get them help safely? Now, I would argue, yeah, it's possible. I've seen it happen that way. But I've also seen the flip side of it, and usually I get more of this than anything, is that these people tend to be very aggressive. They tend to have a very short fuse. And when I talk about the unlimited strength, I have seen people actually legitimately like break through walls, like move cars, because their sensory, the nerves in their body can't feel pain or anything, so they can do these things. And so these are what officers are responding to. So let me ask you, AJ, if we put a social worker into this environment, are they going to thrive or are they going to fail going into a situation like that?
Man, I think that it will fail. And I think that it will blow up in our faces, but I think the blow up will eventually cost somebody's life. And that life will probably be one of the social workers. Keep in mind, I understand that you're not requesting the social worker to respond to these runs by themselves. You want a police officer to go with them. But something I want you to keep in mind is now there's somebody else added to the equation that police officer has to worry about. The chances that social worker is going to have the same training and knowledge that police officer has is astronomically low, unless we plan on putting the social workers through a police academy, right? And then at that point, you have to ask yourself, what's the difference between the social worker and the police officer, seeing as the police officer goes through crisis intervention and all sorts of other mental health training? Something else that I want you to ask yourself is, why do the police officers respond to these runs in the first place? Because they're dangerous. I said it a couple episodes ago that I appreciate people who are passionate about bringing positive change. I appreciate that more than I appreciate a lot of things in life. And I support that more than I support a lot of things in life, but not supporting it and being passionate about it without knowing 100% the ins and outs of what you're talking about. So this example that we're giving you is, you have a person that's extremely strong, whether they're on drugs or just experiencing some sort of mental health crisis. They're aggressive, right? They're punching holes in the wall. I'll just paint a whole picture for you, right? They broke into their parents' house. They're punching holes in the wall. This is a early 20-year-old male, 6 foot, 220 pounds, right? He's punching holes in the wall. Parents call 911. Is this a mental health crisis? Yes. My son has never acted like before. He's erratic. He's not making sense. He's covered in sweat. He now grabbed the knife and he locked himself in our room. Please hurry up. We don't know what's happening. Okay. The social worker and the police officer responded now. The social worker's tactics are going to be completely different than what the police officer's tactics are going to be, right? the police officer, knowing what he or she knows, is going to have a reactionary gap, right? They're going to attempt to use least lethal force. Less lethal. What am I trying to say here?
Less lethal force.
Less lethal. Ooh, I couldn't say that. Force, right? Whether it's a taser, pepper spray, or whatever. If they have lethal force backup, they're going to keep that reactionary gap and whatever. The social worker may want to go a little bit closer, right? Like, hey, sir, I understand what's going on. Can you walk with me, talk with me? Now say that patient, that the person that's experiencing the mental health crisis grabs a social worker. Now what do we have? A hostage situation. And this is going to happen more times than we want to believe if we start implementing social workers to respond to these runs with police officers. Do I think that there's room for this to work? Absolutely. But you can't just push social workers into this field without the proper training, right? Like they're going to have to go through months and months of training. And then they're going to have to go out into the field with a police officer before they could even actually implement this to shadow a police officer and understand what our job is. So I think it's going to fail. And then you got to take into consideration, well, are we going to give the social workers bulletproof vests? Of course we are, AJ. We want to be safe. Now, where's that money coming from?
Exactly, because they want to defund things.
You want to defund things that are already under budget. Like we don't already have enough money in the budget for police officers nationwide, right? You talk to any major police department, any small police department, I would say a majority of them do not have the funds to get the training and equipment that they need to do their jobs. And we're already talking about defunding them, right? So now say we take the defunding off of the table. We don't want to defund the police. We just want social workers, one in every cruiser. That's what I'm hearing most of the time. We want a social worker in every cruiser. All right. The city of Columbus has 2,000 police officers. So you want to hire 2,000 social workers. Okay. Say you don't. There's shifts, right? They could break it up. They could do 12 hours. You want to hire 1,000 social workers. You got to pay their salary. You got to pay their benefits. You need a bulletproof vest now for them. You got to pay for their training. So we can't talk about defunding, right? We need to talk about funding. And if you really look at I know I'm rambling for a second, but if we really look at the grand scheme of things, all of this could be solved with what? More training. More training. Yep. What separates the social worker from the police officer? Training.
Yep.
If you could set your pride aside and go, you know what? Maybe we just need to push funding the police a little bit more than we have been to get them the same training that social workers have. Problem solved.
Yep.
You don't need an extra body.
Exactly.
You got police officers that are already trained to be social workers.
Yep.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's AJ. I hope you're having a great day and an even better week. Listen, I know you hear it. That's me stirring up the pre-workout so I could kill my workout from Thin Line Anthem Supplement Brand, a supplement brand created by first responders for first responders. Listen to me when I say this. Know where your money's going. I'll say it one more time for you. Know where your money is going. They're offering our listeners 25% off their entire order. All you have to do is enter this promo code during checkout. It's needed. All capital letters, no spaces, 25% off your entire order. Fill the card up. When you fill the card up and when you check out, take a picture and send it to your boy so we can have our own little fitness challenge going on. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And they're trained with the tactics. Another thing about that is the reality. And so if we had to create a model, and I like AJ's model right there. One of the things that my department already does that's a phenomenal model is we have a partnership with the Department of Behavioral Health. And so we have a person at our station that works for Department of Behavioral Health, but she works out of our department. And anytime we have a mental health crisis, we'll call her out and she can offer the resources that she needs, but we only call her out when it's safe to do so. So we won't put her in a position where now we're going to compromise her safety if it's not safe to do so. Now, here's one of the arguments that I've gotten from a social worker before that, and I'm going to debunk their argument right now, is the fact of, well, we deal with people all the time in hospitals and we don't have any guns and we do just fine and we're trained to take them in based off of, because we don't have any guns in the hospital. But here's my point to them though, is that the one thing that they have that we don't have is they're not dealing with the unknown like we are. So one of the things that what I mean by that is dealing with the unknown. When they're in the hospital, they are in a controlled environment. So even if they aren't on their medication, even if they're going through a psychotic episode, the one thing that you know for sure is they don't have any weapons on them because they've been searched. Most of the time, they don't have any clothing on them.
They have a gown on.
They have a gown on. So if anything, you're going to be dealing with the person that's just going hands on. And so now, yeah, you can overwhelm that person and take him into custody safely. The one thing that we don't have as police officers on the street is that we are dealing with the unknown. So if I'm dealing with a mental health call for service comes out and I'm dealing with somebody that they said, hey, he's schizophrenic, he's inside that house by himself. I don't know if he has any guns in there. I don't know if he has any knives in there. I don't know what he's actually trying to do because I'm dealing with the unknown. And so we are encountering these people when they're at their most pinnacle peak in that psychotic episode, and we have to be able to talk them down safely. And so that kind of debunks that myth of, well, we get it done without weapons inside of these facilities, but you're also not working with the unknown like we are. And so I see you laughing, AJ.
After the officer's already taken all the weapons off of them.
Pretty much.
Not only that, but I used to work at a hospital as a police officer. A hospital that had a police department. I worked there for 4 years. So you're absolutely right, social worker who said that. You do deal with patients day in and day out and you don't have a gun. But if things go sideways, guess what you do? You remove yourself from the situation. And guess what else you do? You call somebody that have weapons and tools to take care of that situation. So that whole logic by itself is, I don't know where that person was trying to go with that logic. Like, are they trying to say that police officers are better off without guns? I have a really good friend who is not a fan of the police, who moved to the UK 5 years ago, maybe, right? And he was there for 2 years. And he lived in Chicago prior to this, right? So he was in the thick of it, right? Like, he's seen a lot. Did not have good experiences with the police. This is a really good friend of mine. We have conversations all the time. Within 6 months of him living in the UK, wherever he was at, the police didn't carry firearms. So let me just lay that out for you. He called me early in the morning. He's like, AJ, he's like, I gotta apologize. He's like, I was completely wrong in thinking what I thought prior to what happened to me last night. I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, I was at a bar. A fight broke out in the bar. The police came in, took the people out, right? They're still kind of arguing back and forth. One of the guys turns around and spits in the officer's face and then walks down the street a free man. And he's like, that can't happen. Like, there needs to be some sort of like law and order. Like, there needs to be some sort of consequence for the repercussion. And it just makes me even more scared that they don't have guns, because what if that guy would have pulled out a knife and started stabbing people, right? Like, you need to be able to end that threat immediately. So that logic of police officers don't need guns, that just tells me that you live a very sheltered life. Well, I'm not saying it to insult you by any means, so please don't take it that way. But like, the moment that you actually like step out of your comfort zone and do a ride along with a police officer, and I would say do a ride along in the inner city, you're going to see that logic is not logic.
And not only that too, I've actually saw some, because right now a lot of people are fishing for solutions. They're fishing to try to change things. And so I've actually saw something come across recently that said that they're creating a unit, an unarmed unit that's going to go and focus on quality of life issues throughout the city.
Who's going to sign up for that?
One, who's going to sign up for it? But two, we got to go back to the logic of it. I get it. And again, I'm going to say this again. I understand why people feel that way. I understand why you're thinking that way. Like, hey, why don't we just have some of these officers go out there that don't have guns, and all they go do is handle some of the unarmed or the quality of life issues. And then when some of these critical incidents come out, then we can send the armed police officers in to handle it. I understand that. But here's the one thing, and we're going to go back to the last example I used. One of the things, and one of my mentors / good friends of mine has told me this many times before, and I'll say it again, I've said it on the podcast, is the number one unpredictable thing in life is human nature. It's human nature. So let's say you send a person, one of these new officers out there to go deal with one of these quality of life issues. Let's just say it's a a civil dispute. Let's just say, for the sake of this example, let's say it's a civil dispute involving some people that want to get evicted, and they're trying to evict somebody, and the people don't want to leave that place. That's a civil dispute. And I'm talking about, let's say somebody's renting an apartment, the people inside that apartment saying, hey, no, we're not leaving, and the landlord saying, nope, I'm here to evict you. So they call the quality of life team to go out there and handle this civil dispute. On the surface level, it sounds great. It sounds like a civil dispute. We're going to send some unarmed officers out there to go handle this and help them handle this civilly, because that's what it is. It's not criminal at this point in time. But here's what people don't realize. What's the unknown here? The unknown is you have a family that is emotionally attached to a place that they're living. You are trying to go evict them, which means that now they no longer have a place to live. And now the people that are inside of that place, say they have kids, this is the only place that they have that they know they can give their family shelter. And therefore, we are not going to leave this place. And so now they have no choice but to fight for their family and fight for their way to live. And so what happens is when that quality of life officer shows up to go evict them, now what happens is you now have a shootout because the person inside of that place said, look, I am not leaving this place because this is my only place to live, even if the bank took it over. And now what happens, as soon as they show up, he starts shooting rounds through the house, and now he's shooting at the officers and that quality of life officer, whoever's there, because he's not leaving. And now what you have is a hostage standoff because you have a barricaded subject inside of an apartment complex that's not leaving and already showed a propensity for violence. That example I give you is one that happened in my city about 3 years ago, where you had an officer going to serve an eviction notice on a person that the bank took over the house, and that dude said, I am not leaving this house, and a shootout started. The dude starts shooting assault rifle type weapons out of that front door, start shooting handguns out of that front door. We returned fire, and ultimately what ended up happening is he set the house on fire and burned the house down, and the dude was killed inside. Something that started civilly ended in that manner, like I just described. And that's the one reason I have to get people to understand, is that I get the thought behind, hey, let's send unarmed people to these quality of life issues so that way we can reduce the plausibility of officers having to utilize lethal force. But we don't know. We can't control the unknown. We can't control human nature, and therefore that's why it's important for officers to be armed.
And this ain't meant to be fair. Like, I think that's the big confusion for a lot of people, and the big struggle that people are dealing with right now. Is like, this ain't meant to be fair. Like, when I go into a situation, I should have all the tools with me, whether it's in my brain or whether it's on my belt, to make our altercation, if one shall arise, unfair in my favor. That's the point of this, right? That's why we have so many tools. Right? If you ball your fist up and you want to fight me, guess what? I'm not fighting you, bruh. I got pepper spray. Psst, melt your face off, right? Like, this ain't fair. If you grab a weapon, well, guess what? I got a big metal stick, or I got a gun on me, right? Like, this is not meant to be fair. Like, we have these tools and we go through this training for a reason. What we really need to be focusing on is this. And I'll speak as carefully as I can. My man Billy might have to come save the day if I say something that, I don't want out there, but I'll try my best not to do that. In 2017, the city of Columbus had 143 homicides. More than the city has ever seen. We're talking about the 14th largest city in America. 143 homicides, broke the record. I think the one before that was like 138, 139 or something like that. It broke the record. More than the city of Columbus has ever seen. As of today, October 19th, we're at 130 homicides. Now, these may be numbers to you, but a lot of these police officers that go out into these communities know these numbers personally. They know their families. They've had to go out and tell the mothers, hey, your son's not coming home tonight. He got killed in a drive-by. They've had to go out and tell the fathers, hey, your son got stabbed at the club last night. You're never going to see him again. They've had to bring loved ones in. Hey, can you identify this body? We think that you might be the next of kin. This is what we need to be focusing on. Because while we're sitting here and we're arguing these things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, you could argue all day long. Well, I don't want police officers having guns. We know where that's going to get us. A majority of people in the world know where that's going to get us. Push that off the table. What we need to be arguing about right now is, why are these numbers so high? Why are these families losing loved ones? That's what we need to be focusing on. Stop letting these people in power pull the shade over your eyes. Hey, look this way. They're pulling magic tricks on you. Hey, look this way. Why are you looking this way? They're doing right in their political agenda, right? When you turn back, they're like, oh, look what they did. Blame them. There are people in power who have the power to make this stop, and they're not doing it. They're not doing it. I get message after message after message every single day from police officers all over this country. Man, I want to go out here and I want to stop these cars, and I want to be proactive, and I want to do this, but I can't, right? The powers to be have told me not to do this. And you know why they're not worried about it? Because it hasn't affected their home. It hasn't affected their community. It's the same thing when these drug epidemics happen, right? When crack first hit, it was killing people left and right. Nobody cared until what? Until it spilled into the suburbs. Yep. And I hate to be that guy, but that's the reality of it. And then once it spilled into these people who have power in these politicians' households, then they were like, okay, it's an epidemic. We have to do something about it. We have to go out here. We have to arrest the drug dealers. We have to pour money into the DEA, and they need to go to Mexico and south of the border and do all this stuff. Same thing with heroin. It's happening now. Let me
tell you this, because I saw this. So Riverside County DEA's office just got the largest bust in the history. So let me read you the numbers of this.
History of what?
Since the DEA
ever.
Okay.
Seizure
in that
of
county. I'm sorry. I just want to.
For the
world.
The world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me tell you how much drugs they got off the street. Says the largest domestic meth bust in the agency's history. They seized 2,200 pounds of methamphetamine, 893 pounds of cocaine, 13 pounds of heroin and also heroin, as well as fentanyl, that was located here in Riverside County. And it was being transported and trafficked with ties to Sinaloa cartel. Now, let me tell you guys this. That, first of all, that's a lot of drugs. A lot.
They said it's enough meth to give every person in the United States a dose.
And that's just in one place. So imagine this. That's enough drugs to give every person in the United States of America a dose, and that's just in one place. That's just in two cities locally here in Riverside County that was seized from. So imagine how much drugs are being trafficked throughout the remainder of the United States. And so let me bring it a little bit back home to how this might affect you. Recently, at my department where I've been working at, we have gone on multiple overdoses involving very, very young adults. I'm talking about 19 years old, 20 years old, as young as 16 to 17 years old. What they're taking, actually, and not only that, when I was working at the high school, we went on overdoses at the middle school level because they're all taking Xanax or they're all taking Percocet. Well, why is that significant? Well, because that Xanax, that Percocet, that Oxycontin, a lot of it is laced with fentanyl. And we've talked about fentanyl before. A small amount of fentanyl is enough to kill that person and another person, even if they just take a little small piece of that pill that they're taking. The scary part is they don't know what they're taking. So this is a true story. This happened as recent as a couple weeks ago. There was a young girl who took a fentanyl pill thinking it was Percocet or Oxycontin. And when she took it, her and her boyfriend went home, and as they went home, they're chilling. She starts to overdose, and when you overdose on that stuff, it makes you sound like you're snoring. So the person, if you and I were together, Billy, and I start overdosing, you're going to think, oh man, this dude is like really high right now because it looks like I'm sleeping. So I start to make this snoring sound, and you start to think, oh man, he's just really out, like he's snoring big time. You don't really panic because you just think I'm sleeping. When in all actuality, what's actually going on is I can't breathe. That and so that I'm actually going through an overdose, but you're led to believe that I'm sleeping. And so in this specific case involving that young lady, she was with her boyfriend. Boyfriend thought, hey, she's just going through, she's sleeping, is, going through some tough stuff. He even tells his mom and them, they say, hey, you know what, we're not going to call the police just yet because we think she's just going through some type of very, very deep sleep or whatever. They wake up, they go to sleep in the middle of the night. They go back to sleep because she's just thinking she's sleeping it off. They wake up in the morning and she's cold to the touch and she's dead, ice cold. Yep. That's not the first time I've gone on a call like that. Why do I bring this up? The reason I bring it up is simply because of this. We're talking about police brutality being an epidemic. A health crisis is what people are saying. That police officers are killing people at outrageous numbers and levels. No, what's killing people at outrageous numbers is these drugs that are hitting these streets, are the guns that are hitting the streets. In my city right now, we are recovering more guns than ever before in the history of our department. We are recovering guns every single week. Just yesterday, there was a shooting in my city and we recovered multiple guns during that situation. And so why is this all occurring? Is because people don't fear law enforcement anymore. People don't fear consequences anymore. Kind of going back to AJ's point, is because we have this sheet over our the shade over our face, and we're being led to believe all these other things are really what's killing us, when in all actuality, the things that are really killing us, we're actually making it more acceptable for people to do more nowadays. And we're saying, no, the real problem is these police officers. So I'm saying this, don't get me wrong. Can we get better in law enforcement? Absolutely. Do we need to get rid of some of the bad police officers in law enforcement? Absolutely. But don't be led to believe that you should be riding down the street and you're scared to be pulled over by a police officer because they're going to kill you. Your chances of being killed by drugs, your chances of being killed by somebody else that looks like you in your community are a lot higher than being killed by a police officer. And that's what's so scary about this narrative. And so I know we went from talking about people with mental health, but all of this stuff is connected. All of this stuff is connected. When we talk about putting social workers in the police departments to go handle these calls, that's not the solution. When we talk about getting rid of police officers' guns because they're killing us at astronomical rates, that's not the solution. We need to be focused on taking these drugs off the streets. We need to be focused on putting more money into people that are dealing with mental health instead of this revolving door. And what that revolving door is you put a person on a 72-hour hold because they're going through a mental health crisis, and then after that 72 hours is over, nothing else happens because nobody follows up with them, and they're right back on the street. And that same police officer is dealing with them 3 days later because they didn't get the necessary treatment that they needed. And why? Because we're not putting the necessary resources to that problem. We're putting it towards all this other stuff. So forgive me for my rant, but it just pisses me off.
You're good, man. Somebody made a comment a few weeks ago on one of my Instagram posts. And apparently I said something about arrest a drug dealer, like use an example of like a drug dealer being arrested. And his comment was, you clearly support the war on drugs. That doesn't need to be your focus. Legalize all drugs and let's move on. I say that because I'm getting ready to lead into a quick segue. But before I do that, let me break down what happens more times than not. And when I say more times than not, I'll probably say 9 times out of 10. Ryan's a drug dealer, right? Hypothetical world, Ryan's a drug dealer. Whether he's doing it because, he fell on hard times or because he just wants to live that dope boy lifestyle, right? He wants to go into the club with stacks of money and drive a fancy car, whatever. Either way, he's illegally selling drugs, right? He's on the corner. He's selling drugs. We'll use heroin, all right? Heroin's his drug of choice that he's selling. He has 20 clients a day that come see him. He's standing on the street corner. Bop, bop. His 20 clients come. A week passes. His 20 clients come every day, right? For a week. Boop, 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 boop. Ryan's now getting attention from other drug dealers. Well, hold on. His 20 clients could be my 20 clients. So now Billy is mad because Billy sells drugs too down the street.
That's right.
And he's like, well, hold up.
That's why he's dressed so nice today.
That's why he dressed so nice today. You digging in my pockets, Ryan. I'm going to do a drive-by. I miss. Hit a little kid. Kill a little kid playing in the front yard. That's one life. Right? That's one life gone already. We just started this. All right? Now, say 3 out of your 20, right? You got 20 users that come to you every day. 3 of your 20 users lost their jobs because now they're addicted to heroin. They don't have any money, but now they have an addiction. What do? They start breaking into people's houses. They start robbing people. They start breaking into cars. So now the crime rate in that area is slowly starting to go up. Say, I'm a homeowner. I live 3 doors down from here selling dope. My property value is going down, 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 down. But now Ryan, being the new drug dealer on the block, he just got shot at. He got a point to prove. So he called up his homies. He go ride to Billy's spot, shoot the spot up. He killed 2 of Billy's homies. That's 3 lives lost. I'll stop because you could see how fast this spirals and spirals and spirals. And you could say all day long, well, it wouldn't be an issue if it was legal. It absolutely would, because people would still be selling it on the corner. You think they're going to stop because it's legal now? No, they're going to keep selling it. Because if it's legal, you probably got to go to the doctor and get this, or you probably got to do X, Y, and Z. It's probably going to be more expensive because you got to tax it, to where Ryan, he got a $10 holler. I know he got the product. He cutting it with fentanyl like I like it. It's still going to happen.
Not only that too, you're not even considering the people that actually lost their life because of overdoses and things like that. You know what we need to do? This is what we need to do. We're going to get somebody that has overcome a battle with drug addiction. I got
a list of them.
Perfect.
A list of them.
Perfect.
So, I absolutely have a list of them.
So what I want to do is we're going to have a guest on our podcast that's actually gone through drug addiction, and I want to actually talk about the effects of it and what because I think that's an important conversation to have. I remember when I was just blown away when I was as a new cop. And I started to see, because, before I was a police officer, people would say, oh, yeah, I would hear officers say, oh, yeah, these drug addicts are the ones that are breaking into your house. And I'm like, man, you guys are just using that as an excuse, to say why you guys need to go arrest these people. But when I actually saw it firsthand, when I saw that people break into your property to steal stuff so that way they can go pawn it off, get money to go buy more drugs to support their habit.
Their parents' house.
I really start realizing, like, wow, like this is real stuff. And so I think it's important for our audience to hear these messages from the person himself. And then also too, if you want to watch that process that AJ's talking about, I love this movie, by the way, just because I thought it was a good movie, and it actually, I think, brings perspective. But American Gangster, I mean, that movie right there, hands down, actually shows the process of what really goes on these streets. And it's not a dramatization. It's really not. Like, that's what happens. And that's what we're talking about. That's Hollywood. That's not actually showing. And you talk about some of these cartels, like the Sinaloa cartel and stuff like that, where they will put your body in acid. They'll hang you from the freeway. They will decapitate you.
This is real stuff that happens.
When we talked about that bus right now from DEA's office, I guarantee you a few people have lost their life. Over over them getting those drugs lost. I guarantee you that people have lost their lives over that drug bust. So
100%.
This is not fake stuff that we're talking about. And I thought it would be good to kind of talk about some of these issues because they're all connected. They're all connected in some way, shape, or fashion. Going back to the mental health side of it, I'll never forget. I'm going to leave you guys one last story from patrol. We had a guy like 4 or 5 years ago now. We were going to his house multiple occasions, and AJ, I'm sure you can relate, where in law enforcement, sometimes when somebody's going through a psychotic episode or they're going through some type of mental health episodes, you start to notice an influx of calls coming from that residence over over a period of time. And so much so that when a call goes out of the person's house, you kind of already know, like, here we go again. We're going over there again. Because again, going back to the revolving door, there's not a lot of resources. And I feel so bad for the family members involved because they're like, we don't know what else to do. Like, you guys took him 3 days last time, and then after that 3 days was over, he was back at our house and he still wasn't fixed. Those are where we need to start putting resources. But anyways, this was one of those cases. We went out there. The guy had actually killed his dog, like stabbed his dog multiple times, and we knew something wasn't right. So then we went out there another day after that because somehow he got out. And when we went out there again, this time he stabbed his mom and his dad multiple times. Like, looked like a scene from a scary movie like Carrie or something like that. Blood all over the place. Tried to come at the officers and stuff like that. And we were successfully able to tase them and take them into custody. They went back and interviewed this guy, and it was literally like watching a scary movie. Like, my man was like, oh yeah, like, and like nothing ever happened. He was like, oh yeah, like that's what the that's what the spirits were telling me to do. He was like, I was a god. I was empowered. And when I was empowered, I was being told, like, they are lesser than you. You need to go and kill them. Like, you need to, they don't deserve to be alive. You are the light. And this is all what the voices are telling him in his head, which is what allowed him to go and do what he did. And so I bring that scenario up, and we watched the video because, again, us going through training for mental health crises, we wanted to know, like, what's going through people's minds. This is what was going through his mind. So is that a place where you want a social worker to respond to? Is that something that you want them to go into, knowing that this guy has already tried to kill his parents, knowing that he killed his dog the day before? Is that somebody that you're going to go in there and talk off a ledge and kumbaya with him and get him in and sweet talk him in the cuffs? No, it's not. I don't know if you guys saw the documentary on Netflix about the guy that killed his wife and his 2 kids. You guys see that yet?
Colorado?
Yeah.
Man, me and Kimberly watched it. I had to fast forward through the part where he actually started describing what he did.
I knew from the jump.
You knew, what do you mean?
I knew from the jump he did it. Knew from the jump. I was like, yeah, he did
Oh,
that.
yeah. Me too. So the part in the documentary where he actually starts to walk you through what he did to his wife and his daughter, me and Kimberly had to fast forward because I couldn't listen to that.
Yep.
But that dude was not right. Like, something was not right up top. Is that a place where you want a social worker to respond, where a guy has enough energy to go and not only kill his wife, but kill his kids, and then go and bury them, dispose of them, and act like nothing happened?
Yep.
So this is, and as an officer, somebody who's paid to go and handle these situations, as somebody's just watching a documentary, I myself was like, man, I had to fast forward through it. So you got to realize there's officers out here that are going on calls for service like that every single day. We also need that mental health evaluation on a regular because that's not normal for us to hear. So, I know we kind of bounced back and forth on today's episode, but these are real issues that I wanted to talk about that we deal with as officers, and we have to be able to. I made a video last week called knee-jerk reactions. Some of these knee-jerk reactions that people want they're just flat out dumb, just flat out stupid.
No, I agree, man. No, I completely agree. And the cool thing is I got a message on Snapchat. I think it was yesterday actually. And it was a young man, and he sent me a picture of him getting sworn in at his police department in South Carolina. And underneath of it, he wrote, pretty much like, thanks to you, big bro. Like, you inspire me to go out into the community and do good things. I plan to follow in your footsteps, whatever. And it just lit a light inside of me and inspired me, because even during these times, there are good people who are signing up to do this job, despite the hate they're going to get, despite the violence that they're going to, approach at some point during their career. They are still signing up to do this job to make a difference.
Without a doubt. I've gotten a lot of those too, and it motivates me every single time. I was in the gym today, and it was so cool, man. Like, I'm just in there working out, getting my workout on, and I came across, or I was wearing my BBU shirt, and 2 guys came up. I was walking, and they stopped me. They were like, "Are you Ryan Tillman?" I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "Man," they were like, "We were trying to figure out if it was you because you had your mask on, but we saw the shirt, and we just knew." And they were like, "Man, this is so exciting, man. We follow your content. We love what you guys are doing, man. We're in the process right now, man. Thank you so much." And one of them went on and bought a BB shirt right after, and it was like, and I saw, but that motivates me because I know that we're making an impact. So even with all the negativity out there, even with people talking about just shoot them in the leg and trying to make our job a lot harder than what it is, we will still show up. We're still gonna get the job done because that's what we're called to do. And like we've said before, this is not just a job; it's a calling, and we will answer that call every single time.
And I might be back to work sooner than later, so you already know I'm coming out.
Hey, that's
turning
awesome.
Turning up. I can't say too much, but just I might be back sooner than later.
That's good news.
That's really good news.
Yeah, so I'm pumped. So we'll see. We will see.
Well, with that, Billy, you got anything to add? Any closing words for us, bro?
Yeah, actually, I kind of wanted to bring something up to end things. You were talking about how like all these kind of stupid ideas are being pushed, and what you guys are talking about are kind of practical ideas that would work. But I was watching the Dodgers game, and an ad came up for the next presidential debate, and it was like, everything hangs in the balance. Biden, Trump, head face on, blah, blah, blah. And then it transitioned to like the World Series, blah, 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 like coming up next week. You could not
I love the sound effect.
You could not tell the difference between the presidential debate commercial and like a WWE commercial. So to me, it's like, okay, they're officially making politics entertainment for us to watch, click, or share so they get marketing money. So like they're pushing these stupid ideas because votes keep them in power, and they create teams, they create sides, so we feel like we have to pick one. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, don't be bought. Like, don't give into this like entertainment politics. Like, what they're talking about, local elections can fix. And like, if you pay attention to local matters, like we can actually change things. Obviously the president is important, but just don't give in to that. It was I couldn't believe it. It was like a WWE commercial for the next debate.
I'm going to leave you guys with this in your mind, because that's a great point, Billy, and it just reminded me. Yesterday, Victor Marks came in and talked at our church yesterday, and if you guys don't follow Victor Marks, you need to. He is a phenomenal dude with a phenomenal testimony. Dude is, man, just phenomenal. So anyways, as we're talking after church, he brought up something that I was like, man, this is kind of scary. He was like, where we are transitioning as a society is you're going to start seeing local neighborhoods being made up of people with like-minded views and thoughts. And
100%.
And if you go into certain neighborhoods, you will know that this isn't the neighborhood to be in because they don't align with your ideals. And so he said it's beyond racism at this point. They were using racism to push this whole next agenda, but I can literally see that happening with people leaving certain states in droves and things like that. We're becoming a segregated, not just segregated state, but segregated on the most localist levels that you can imagine. And that is a scary place to be, because now we are no longer united. We are no longer on a united front. We are all divided, which is why it talks about when our country falls, we're going to divide ourselves. We're going to crumble from within. And so this is why it's important to start getting on a united place. I saw a cool picture yesterday where it was a guy holding a Biden flag, and then it was a guy holding a Trump flag, and they were shaking hands in the middle. That's what this country needs to come to, is to say, hey, look, even though we may differ in our opinions and our thoughts, we can still meet together in the middle and have, collective dialogue. So anything else to leave our listeners, AJ, with?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I support you if you are pushing an agenda for positive change, but just know that you must know everything about the agenda you are pushing it before you push it. That's all I got.
Boom, there it is. Hey guys, this was a great episode. We really appreciate you. If you guys like this podcast, please continue to download it. Please continue to leave us a 5-star rating, and also please leave us a review. It pushes us up those charts. We are climbing. We are steadily climbing. This podcast is becoming one of the most popular podcasts around the world, not just in government, but in general. And so we can only do that with you and with your support. And also, if you guys want to get back into shape, I know I am, AJ is, and Billy are. We're actually all of us actually are starting to look the part. It's largely in part of Thin Line Anthem. So go on to Thin Line Anthem, all caps, no spaces, thinlineanthem.com, and go ahead and use promo code It's Needed, all caps, no spaces, so that way you guys can get your supplements for 30% off. It's actually helped me. I take a lot of their vitamins and stuff like that every single day, and they make it so easy because it literally comes in a pack, and I just take them all together, so I won't have to divide them up and them like that.
And they donate.
25 or 30?
It's 25% off.
Oh, 25% off.
And they donate to good causes. And actually, if you are part of the fitness challenge, we are announcing the winner once this podcast is over after the outro music, which is going to be Ice Cube, obviously. So
watch, Thin Line Anthem's going to listen to this podcast. They're going to hear me say 30% off for a second. They're going to perk up like, whoa.
They're giving 100% off, guys.
Free, y'all. It's free.
So, hey, y'all, we appreciate you guys. We love you, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.